Are you ready to be a fly on the wall to a personal therapy session? Well, you're in luck because licensed therapist Fanshen Thompson walks me through my own journey and stuckness in my relationship. But before we get into that, I wanted to let you guys know that we are coming out with a brand new digital product in 2 weeks. And for a limited time, we are going to have a special discount for Black Friday. I've teamed up with Maria from Good Days to make the ultimate planner and journal to holistically integrate and get organized with your schedule while also paying attention to your mental health, your body, and your spirit. Click the link in the show notes or head on over to howwegetthru.com, that's thru.com/Black Friday, all one word, to be the first to get your hands on it. Okay, now back to the episode. You guys, this is a really vulnerable episode for me. And you know, I've been vulnerable on the podcast before, and my hope is that it invites you to also be vulnerable because I truly don't believe there's a hierarchy of healing here. So you'll listen as Fanshen's unconditional upbringing has pulled a thread throughout her life to have a radical and holistic view of love and relationships. There are some tears by me, some ahas, and a lot of connection with a little bit of woo mixed in. So take a listen as Fanshen guides me through her framework of let be, let in, and let go to see the power of this subtle shift within my own relationship. And if you are new here, you're listening to the How We Get Thru podcast, a place for you to feel connected through deep and meaningful conversations, as I sometimes cry. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder and CEO of the How We Get Thru app. And my mission is to bring you guys affordable and diverse therapy resources to help you get through all the hard stuff, all in one place and at your own pace. Welcome to the How We Get Thru community. Hi, and welcome back to How We Get Thru. Today's guest is Fanshen Thompson, a licensed therapist in Northern California. Fanshen helps single people, parents, and couples struggling with feelings of disconnection in their relationships. She integrates a mind-body awareness and mindfulness practices, as well as self-compassion and the Gottman method. Thank you, Fanshen, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Jen. I'm so glad to be here. It's been a long time coming, so it's great to be here.
Yes, we had to reschedule many times, but we are here.
That's right. We hooked each other up.
Excited.
We supported each other. There were some bumps.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Hey.
Awesome, Fanshen. Well, we like to start every episode with a mental health myth, and we would love to know yours around this disconnection for people and them for themselves and in their relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the question. And really what came to me quickly, and it's actually something that I talk about in my work with clients and in my message to clients on my website and all of that, which is that therapy does not have to be exclusively painful in order to receive benefit. So I do think that is a myth, that people think going to therapy just automatically means you're going to, pull out all the pain, all the wounds. And while that certainly is true and real and important and not to be minimized, there also is real joy in the act of therapy and being able to connect more deeply with yourself, to be able to become aware of things that maybe you weren't able to be aware of in the past. And I think also just being able to kind of look at the good stuff, to notice the good stuff. We have a negativity bias, as I'm sure many of your listeners are aware, in general as humans, and it was there to be kind of protective, right? This negativity bias. But it's kind of gone on overdrive. And this idea of finding the good and being with the good and that piece, even in therapy, I find to be actually a really rich part of the work that I do. And it's a key part of the course in How We Get Thru. So we'll get more into that later. But yeah, that to me is, I think, a really powerful mental health myth, that therapy does not have to be exclusively painful in order to receive benefit. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Fanshen, have you always been this grounded and
Ask my children.
positive?
They will tell you,
Yeah.
no way. They are now 18 and almost 15. So it's been a journey.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a ride.
You did it.
And it's done. And it's been a lot of self work for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
As kids do, they invite us in
They do.
to our own self-work.
I love the frame of invitation instead of forcing us into.
Yes. I do think it's an invite because it's like an invitation of like, are you going to choose to work on this or are you going to choose to not?
Absolutely.
And whatever you choose is valid, right? But it feels like my kids have done that of like inviting me into myself, like what's happening here for you.
Yeah.
And I think the same kind of segues for relationships, right? And when you have young children or when you have children at all, the relationship can feel very lonely and disconnected at times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also just a matter of what our capacity is at various times, whether we turn towards or we turn away, right? And for me personally, I did my best to turn towards in my younger years, but I didn't really know how. I struggled to know how, and I did my best. But for me, I've really, as I've gotten older, I've really just been able to ground in a way that felt really hard for me personally because of my journey, my path, my past experiences when my kids were younger. So I think everyone has a different journey, whether we turn towards the difficulty and really face it, or whether we choose to turn away because it just feels like too much at times.
Yeah, I love that. Like just giving you the option to pick freely of what you're needing at that moment.
Yeah. And what the capacity is. Absolutely.
What the capacity is. And when you have small children, the capacity is very tiny window.
It's very limited. It's very limited.
Of what that looks like. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been married? Tell us a little about
my relationship. Yeah. So we've been together for 24 years, actually.
Wow.
This August. We, funny story, I don't actually know when we got married, technically married. We were not big married people. It just wasn't a thing for us, either of us. It just wasn't a value. It wasn't important. Never was a thing. It was always just like, okay, should we move in together? Yeah, let's move in together. We're ready. Should we start having kids? Yeah, let's start having kids. How many do you want? I was like, I want 4. He's like, yeah. He knew. And then we ended up getting married many years later, and I literally don't even know. We got into a big fight that day. It was like,
yeah, sounds right.
Yep, that was just another day. Got married at City Hall in San Francisco, actually. So anyway, 24-year relationship, and yeah, I feel really thankful. We've really grown together and changed together, and been able to remain pretty connected. And part of that was actually when our kids were young is turning towards one another and really investing in the relationship and connecting and doing our best to do that. Certainly was not perfect. There was lots of bumps. Yeah.
What did that look like? How did you both decide to turn into each other? Like what does that practically look like? How is that a conversation? Are you noticing them turning?
I love that question. We actually talked about it a lot. It was a value of ours going into the relationship, that we always saw having children as part of our lives, but not all of our lives and not all of our identity and who we were. We both were in social work when we had young kids, and we're very, very committed to our work, and both worked basically full time, and just felt really passionately that we wanted our kids to see that, to experience us as having this value of social work and giving back to the community. And We also wanted them to see us as a stable couple that loved each other and were solid. Again, it wasn't always perfect. We had some rough years back then, but we just were committed to valuing our relationship and almost putting it first, which can be controversial, I think, especially in this day and age when we do so much for our kids. But we really put our relationship first, and we invested in it. And there are things we like to do outside of the home together, so we did our best to keep doing those things. And it wasn't always easy, but
yeah. Yes. And I love that like controversial statement of like not putting your kids first. And I mean, I think we've gotten it backwards. Like if we aren't okay, if like the mom isn't okay, right? How do we put our moms first, right?
Yeah.
Or how do we put our relationship first? Like if we aren't great, then the rest of the family suffers. And I think this is partly where the disconnection comes from in the relationships with little kids, is that there is this almost turning away and into children, into the parenting, because it calls for a lot. But I loved your like flip-flop of what if we put our relationship and prioritize our relationship first? What impact would that have on our parenting or on our kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's so easy. I wish that I had the tools that I now share with the couples that I work with and parents that I work with. I wish that I'd had those when my kids were younger, because I feel like things would come up, like triggers would happen between us, and I wouldn't always know how to deal with it. And so a lot of the way that I dealt with it, because I'm kind of an extrovert and I'm kind of I would just sort of externalize and blame, right? And I know I'm not alone, but people have different ways of dealing with their disconnection in their relationship, right? And I just wish that I'd had those tools when I was going through those periods where there was a lot of feelings. We were like some couples kind of live away from each other and just are disconnected, and some kind of go at it, right? And we would go at it because we're both fiery people. And so that's how we would kind of work it out. And I wish I had some of the more kind of going inward tools that I now have for myself, that have also helped improve my relationship in the later years, and has improved my relationship with my kids and myself.
Yeah. And so did you always know that you wanted to be a therapist and help like couples, or like how does your life experience shape your work or what you do?
No, Jen, it's been a very winding path. Very winding path. But I love the question. So, I mean, I always knew that I would work with people from a really young age. I actually started as with interest in being a preschool teacher. Early childhood education was always a passion of mine. And so I got my BA in early childhood, and I thought that's what I would do. And I remain interested in child development. It's always an area of interest of mine. Throughout my relationship too, we would always read sort of like the newest and latest things about child development and really wanting to understand how kids live in the world. And so I've always had a real connection to just the world of children, and felt really passionately about the young mind, and also just the ways in which we as a society and a culture treat kids, which that could be a whole conversation in and of itself that I won't go down because I have a lot of passionate feelings about that. But that's really what drew me into the work in general, into social work. And then what I started doing ultimately that led me to the direction to get my master's in social work was working with young adolescents in foster care. So kids in group homes who had been removed because of abuse or neglect. And so I did that for many, many years, and that really was a passion of mine. And my career evolved, and I ended up doing a lot of training and supervision of therapists, and did that for many years in various types of programs with young adults, families, a lot of family work. So a lot of parent sort of family work has always been a passion and interest of mine in children and supporting the whole units, right? Whatever they look like in all the various forms. And eventually ended up in a large company where I was at for 5 years before the pandemic started. And it's where I thought I would end my career. I thought I'd retire, or thought it was kind of my end all be all job. And it just got pulled right out from under me with the pandemic. I pulled it out from under me. I left, which was a really big turning point in my life. And this path found me. So I really was just open and didn't know where I would end up, what I would do. And it really found me. I started working with clients just to kind of have a job, and the work just really spoke to me. I started doing some of this work that my course kind of showcases with clients, and it's just seeing real beautiful transformations around relationships. And this was doing one-on-one work before I even started doing couples work. So just working with individuals around relationships, and not just partner relationships, parental relationships. I have adult clients who really struggle with their relationships with their parents, feeling really stuck in these dynamics that didn't feel good or healthy. And so using these techniques and others, just saw beautiful transformation. It just inspired me so much that it just sort of was like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm doing. It just became clear. And so I'm still evolving. My practice as a private practitioner is young, but I'm not young.
Exactly.
So that's kind of how I found my way here. And I just continue to evolve and change, and started actively working with couples specifically over the last 6 months or so, and just love it. It feels really like a natural progression in my work, and just absolutely love it.
Oh man, that's great. I only see individuals. I don't see couples or adolescents or children. A very narrow range here. But I would love to know, like, your upbringing with your parents, as much as you want to share. I come from divorced family, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff to unpack as far as like the couples piece around that. But everything that you've said so far just feels like you've had a really solid foundation of choosing partnership and in a really healthy way, and then wanting to help other people create healthy partnerships. And so where's this string for you? Like, and this might be a loaded question, but where is this like spark of this feels like a calling for me personally and now professionally?
I love that question. Yeah. It's really beautiful to say that I feel like that partnership was modeled by my mother and my stepfather, who was like my father. He was like such a beautiful human who raised me from birth. I had a very alternative upbringing. My parents moved to a rural town in Northern California to live in a hippie commune before I was born.
Yes.
That's why I have the name Fanshen. It's the name of a book that all the people that lived in the commune were reading at the time I was born. So yes, I'm a child of a revolutionary kind of way of thinking.
Yes.
And they were just a beautiful model of a couple that I feel like again, not perfect by any means. Both of them had issues that were very present, but their foundation was love and connection with each other. And they really modeled that. And they modeled it most poignantly when my mother had to move away from there to live with me in high school, actually, because I went to high school in Berkeley because there was no high schools up there. So I moved with family friends, and it didn't go so well because I was a little country kid living in a big city, going to a 3,000 student school on my own, basically. I lived with another family, but I was like boarding, and it didn't go well. So my mom moved to live with me, and it kind of contributed to them separating. because it just naturally did. That's how it evolved. But they remained partners in this way that was so beautiful, all the way up until my stepfather died, actually, when I was in grad school. But she was like his best friend right by his bed when he passed.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it really did solidify for me the value of that relationship and how important that is. And they also had other relationships. They were actually kind of non-monogamous, which is a value that I have also. And so I haven't actually reflected on that in this way. So I really appreciate the question. Really just appreciate bringing my mom's spirit and Sabi's spirit. Well, unfortunately, are both gone. So, yeah, didn't expect that, Jen. I'm tearing up.
I know. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's so good.
I love bringing them into reminding myself how much they influenced my work and impact who I am today.
Yes. Yeah. And how very much alive they are
so
now,
alive
here.
So alive.
In this moment too. Yes.
So alive. Yeah.
I love that. I think this happens a lot, obviously, for us as therapists, that there is that string, that connection that calls us to like attending to our wounds. And then also, I think in your story and what you said from the beginning, but attending to our strengths. And really, I think that's what I love about you and your approach and what you do in the course for the app. It's very strength-based and like now thinking, and more forwardy than like past, digging up these like old pieces and these old wounds, which again, I think we can like easily do in a lot of cases and then get stuck there.
Yeah.
And I think when, I am your ideal client of just having really young children.
Yeah.
And they're 3 and 5.
Yep.
And having like a really great partnership in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then also really missing my partner and missing like pre-kids, or even just the fantasy of like, man, remember when we could do whatever, we could wake up, or I could like go away or go on a girls' weekend and not have to like wonder if you're going to be okay or if you're fine or if you need help,
Totally.
And it's just, I think, the transformation that happens for us as parents. Your kids need a lot from you when they're younger. And so your needs or your relationship needs, again, just like slippery slopes down the mountain.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, what happened to us?
Where are we? Who are we?
Yeah. So what do we do with that? Asking for a friend.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I mean, I wish there was a snap of a finger and that there was an easy fix. And I do also like to put all of this in context. While the work that I do is very individualized focused, right? It's like, it's helping a person, an individual connect with themselves so that they can feel more whole and complete in this context that you just described. And there's so much externally that is going on that adds to the pressure cooker, right? That we don't have control over, that just the climate that we live in terms of like the lack of support for parents, the lack of, the financial stress and pressures that parents have on them. Also, just the social pressure of like, your kids have to do this, your kids have to be this, your kids have to this, that, right? In our sort of like socioeconomic kind of world, there are expectations, there are standards, there are ways. And even if they kind of, they fluctuate, they're slightly different, there are norms, right? And it's hard not to feel that pressure within the structure of our society as we've created it, right, on this day. I'm open to the possibility that's going to change tomorrow or the next
Burn
day.
it all down. Burn it all down.
Whatever it
to
looks
rebuild.
like. But I do feel like there is something in the air that people want to change. They want it to be different. They want things to be different. And I think we can make it different more than we think. Than more than just like, well, it's above our pay grade, or the government has to do it or whatever. Like, I feel like we as small pockets of community can make change and are in different ways. So anyway, that was a little soapbox, but I just wanted to also put it in that bigger context, because I think also in the self-help world, people can get very like, okay, I have to do all this stuff and fix myself and right? And it's like, well, yeah, sure. I mean, we all need to do what we can do to support ourselves and to heal ourselves and to live the best life that feels right and good for us. And I just like to name that context also, that is real and true.
Yeah, I appreciate that context, because there is a lot of pressure to do and be all the things all the time. And when you talk about your work with individuals and couples, and this is what I believe too, is like this, there is a lot of self-reflection. Like, it starts with self, and I think that it can be hard in a relationship where maybe one partner is really focusing on self, like I'm maybe growing or I'm evolving and changing, and the other partner maybe isn't, or the assumption is that they aren't. And so I think, again, that is that own like disconnect of, I feel like I'm on this path and I feel like you are on this path, and acknowledging that or grieving that. And then what is the connection around that, And again, I think that's what I love about you and your approach, is that there's a framework here, but there's also so much nuance and uniqueness. And even when you just take two people and how unique they are, and then put them in a marriage together, or in the same household, or in a parenting partnership, like there's going to be a lot of things that aren't similar, or that are like oil and water, or a lot of things that can grow and nurture together. And so I think that like that takeaway, and I'm just like, I haven't known like your full story. And so just the whole commune, and like when I asked you, like, how'd you get so grounded? It's like, oh, you were a part of something totally different. And you grew up in this really, I want to use the word sacred. I don't know if that is for you, but like this connection to self or connection to others felt like the biggest value, felt like the priority. We take care of ourselves and we take care of each other. And so again, that just feels like this theme that I think you're really teaching for everyone, including myself right now, is like that we get to come back together when we focus on ourselves and when we focus on each other.
Oh, that was so beautifully said. I can't wait to listen back to this. Because but this is what happens when people bring each of themselves together. It strengthens what each has to offer, and it's beautiful and symbiotic. So,
which I think when I speak to my own relationship of feeling like I'm going one way and they're going the other way, like maybe to not be afraid of that. Like if I'm going on this way, I'm still discovering myself. I'm still pursuing myself. I'm still understanding myself. And I think I grapple with the question. I'm like, every day, I'm like, is this a me thing? Like, is there something here for me? Or is this something for the relationship? And it's just a hard question, I think, when you're in it. But it's something that it almost grounds me a little bit as I like get all crazy and angry and resentful. And I'm like, okay, but is there something here for me? Like, is this a mirroring moment for me that I need to self-soothe in some way, or that I need to kind of look at my own control in this? And then what does that look like in sharing that in my partnership? And where does that partnership kind of come to meet me there? And I think there's no like black and white answer in that. But when you talk, it's that going on that discovery or going on that journey is the answer.
Absolutely. And the question I would reframe slightly as, what is there for me to know right now? Not, oh, I forget how you said it. I just lost it. But
is this for me? Did I say that?
Right. Because that is that's just a little bit of a distancing, right? It's a little bit of like a pushing away, just slightly. So I think the reframe is, what is?
Give it to me.
What is right now? What is it that I'm noticing? What is
love
it
that
I'm feeling? And what is it that I can glean from this right now, like in this moment, right?
That feels way more inviting and kinder versus like, what aren't you looking at, girl? What aren't you catching?
Exactly.
Yes,
what are you missing? Just
I love that.
It's a slight tinge of self-judgment, which is so human. And yet it like the softer we can be towards ourselves, the more we can soften for ourselves and with another person.
And other people. Which I think is just another interesting layer that you're helping me. You guys, anyone listening to this in my own self-therapy right now. So hopefully it's helpful, but I'm getting a lot out of this. But I think that layer that you just kind of like aha'd for me is that I'm wanting to blame. I'm wanting to blame my partner, or I'm wanting to blame me. And that's the space that I'm in. Like, F you, person, me, we are. You know, I'm also all fire, but literally astrology wise, I'm all fire. So I am.
You're ready to go.
Spicy. I am quick. Yes.
Trust me. I get it.
Exactly.
I get it. And I'm still that. Like, I'm not freaking perfect. I'm not like always this like Zen, let it be, let it go, you know, like all the things at all by any means. It's a practice. It's a reminder. It's a coming back to presence. It's coming back to self over and over and over again. It's a muscle memory. And the more we're able to do that, because that instinct to blame it or to externalize is protective, right? It's just this protective piece. And there's something we're needing to protect. And so if we can step back from that and soften a little bit, which is the let be that I talk about in this course, and open to that, allow ourselves to be with that, then things can shift and we can be more present.
In the curiosity. I mean, everything you're saying, like I say externally to other people. And I think it's just that. And when you say like you're not perfect, it's that same thing of like, oh yeah, like I need this reminder. We need to be in relationships with other people to remind us and mirror back to soften. Like, hey, you get to do this too.
Yes. Absolutely.
Fanshen, but where did your like spirituality groundness come from? I keep going back to it. Like, are you meditating? Are you doing yoga? Like, not like what's your routine, but I do think there is some discipline in some way, shape, or form where you are honing this craft because you're just a vast ocean of like openness and groundness at the same time.
I appreciate having that reflected back. You want to go woo woo? I can get woo woo.
Yes, I want to go woo. Give me some woo.
Well, my real transformation happened about 5 years ago when I started seeing an energy worker, actually.
Yes. What kind of energy worker?
So,
like, what is
it? Was this practice called body talk that doesn't seem to have a lot of play. There's a lot of energy work out there. I didn't know anything about it. I just happened to be seeing this woman. She was actually a naturopath, and she started training in this energy work. And so she was doing like discounted sessions to like get hours, like therapists do, you know, during when we need to get hours. And I was seeing her for like kind of hormonal swings, that kind of thing. And she was doing this energy work. And so I just decided to do it. And after like 1 or 2 sessions, I just was like, whoa, I feel different in my body. I felt different in my body is all I can describe. It felt like a transformation, and it reverberated into every part of my life in major, major ways. And so that was really for me, I think. I mean, I'd always been into self-awareness and in sort of self-improvement or whatever, but this was like deep. This was like deep change, deep healing that started to happen. And so that was the first phase for me. And then the next was when I quit my job. So that was 2021. I had a pandemic puppy. That's Georgia in the back.
Oh,
and she and I started hiking just every day. I didn't work for a couple months. I really needed to decompress. And
nice.
She was my therapy. I just started hiking. And I've never been a hiker. I grew up in the country. I came to the city and everyone's like, let's go camping, let's go hiking. I'm like, no, I don't do that. It's like, what? So I've never been a hiker, but I just fell in love with it. And she was a young puppy, so I wouldn't put my headsets on. I wouldn't listen to anything. I just was like in the woods, just me and her, just being, and so that was really my first like meditation. And then I did start meditating actually after that. And I kind of expanded on the energy work, and I do my own sort of energy work practice. And yeah, I feel the energy moving through my body, and I use it in my client work as well, just really sensing into people's energy. And it really helps me just be present with my clients, with my kids, with my relationships. And yeah,
wow.
That's the short version.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, I also did some energy healing work, so feels very similar. But I would love to know, like, in your energy work that you do, like daily, is that more like a Reiki thing? Like,
no, it's actually this system called Sintara system. So it's this woman out of Santa Cruz who I learned about from some friends, because I was talking about my woo.
I love it.
With them, and they were like, oh, I bet you would love this thing. And so I started that actually right around then, so a couple of years ago. And so she has this whole system that gosh, it feels hard to explain, but it's like an internal guided system that there's some related to chakras, but it also is just our entire internal system and external system, so entire universe. And she guides these beautiful meditations that help us connect with that. And so I do that every day, and then I do a deep dive as part of that program every Monday for an hour. Wow. And my daily practice is like 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. So not a ton. I'm not like, I need to meditate all day, every day. Like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
So that's my main sort of grounding. And I would love to do their deep training, but I don't have the capacity right now. But hopefully someday.
Yeah.
Because it's been life-changing.
Yes.
It's been life-changing.
Yes. Oh, that's so true.
Yeah.
I felt similar of like, okay, I'm a therapist. I have this awareness, whatever, but there is something missing that I'm not getting. And I was always drawn to body work. And I did a little bit of it, and I think that was really helpful. But I did some energy healing this last summer, and again, felt so transformational of like being in kind of a meditative state and being able to like recall really like trapped emotions in my body and be able to like breathe them out and release that. And which is interesting is that has like kicked off again the spiritual journey of like non-attachment and trying to be grounded and working on myself, mirroring moment. Like there's so much, again, like the invitation deeper when you start to unleash that work. And I think you have to be passionate about it too. You're like, it's almost like a high, like I got something so amazing out of this. Like what else can I get, you know? Or there's been some really cool meditations where I'm like, whoa, like a lot of clarity has come up. But it is this like discipline, or again, this invitation to come back to that. I think we get swept up into the real world which is very like synonymous in being in a relationship with like parenting and society kind of sweeps you up again. And so we all just have to work really hard on coming back to ourselves and coming back to other people.
Yep. Over and over.
It is a struggle.
Again. Over and over. Totally.
Over and over.
And remaining connected with who we are and what we are. I mean, I will say I've had a couples that have come in for sessions recently who on the onset felt so disconnected and so like their issues and their challenges felt so big. And all I did was listen to them and help them see what they knew to be true about themselves and their relationship. And the shifts were so big so quickly, it stunned me even. I had one couple today cancel their session. I've only seen them for 5 sessions, I think. And they were like really struggling at the beginning, feeling really disconnected. I've seen them for 5 sessions. They're like, I think we're going to take a break. They're about to have a baby. So they were like, I think we'll take a break this week. We're doing so well. Like this happened. And they were doing really well last week too. And that's because they knew that connection or that connection to self and the values that we know to be true and what we want in our lives are just there. They're just under the surface, right? They're just under the surface. They're not that far away, is what I'm trying to say. I feel like that was really wordy, but that's what I'm just trying to say is that they're just right there under the surface. And they just have this like pile of guck that's on top. That's like,
yeah,
but you should. Why don't you just do the dishes without me asking you? You know what I mean? Or like, why can't you just ask me how my day was when I get home? And right? And that's just the gook on the surface. And then underneath it is just love. It's just like, I just want you to see me. I just want to see you. I just want to connect. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Bam.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. I think what I unlocked in my own spiritual healing work is that exact notion of we have access to all that we need.
Yeah.
When we give ourselves enough time to connect to it, that's the work, right? It's not that we don't know or we don't have, I would say answers really, but it is. It's pointing us to a solution or something to tend to, right?
Yes.
And there is a lot of gunk. There's a lot of attachment gunk. There's a lot of history gunk. There's a lot of current social gunk. There's problems, behavior kids.
Right.
Yeah, just tantrums, that's what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of gunk and we get caught up in the gunk.
Yes. And it's hard not to get caught up in the gunk. Yeah. But then when we step back, and that's why like connecting with courses like on your app and seeing a therapist it's just a step back, right? It's like, oh yeah, I can get back to what's true and real for me if I decide to. Right. And it's hard to do it alone because it's hard enough just to do it, period. Right?
Which brings us back a little bit more to your framework. I don't think we said it, but we talked about letting in is the first step. And letting in, I think we talked more about that curiosity.
So let be
stage,
is the first one.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
let
well,
be.
there you go.
Yeah.
Leave it to the expert.
Yes. So let be is the very first, which is just honoring, acknowledging, noticing, seeing, right? And it sounds simple, but so often we just don't even want to do that, right? Our natural inclination is to run away from what is, right? And we do it differently. Some of us run inward into a shell, right? And we go into self-blame or shame or that kind of thing. Others, push away, avoid, withdraw, Others might sort of overeat or overexercise or over-socialize or use substances or, right? That's all moving away from in whatever way, right? And so letting be is the opposite of that. It's being there, acknowledging how we're feeling stuck in our relationship, how we're feeling overwhelmed, how we're feeling sad, mourning sort of the losses that, may be present for us. And just letting ourselves be with the truth of what is in a moment, in a period, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so then the natural progression from that, because I think sometimes people, especially people who are sort of skeptical of like feelings or this kind of idea, is like, well, then won't I just like get stuck or stay in that, or like then I'll just be sad all the time. And it actually I don't find that it works that way personally for myself or with the clients that I've worked with over the years. That fear usually isn't realized. That usually the way, if we truly are letting ourselves feel the feelings and being with what is, they usually pass. They usually shift. They usually transform. Something happens, right? Something opens. Something shifts from that.
I think it's like almost more work to avoid them.
Totally.
Like it takes way more energy, way more focus. And so it's also, it's like if you really were to check in with yourself, is avoiding that feeling really progressing your life?
Right.
Or is it not, right? And
I love that.
And I also understand the hesitation of like feeling like it's going to swallow you whole.
Completely.
And I think I say that a lot to clients, like, I promise you this won't swallow you whole.
Yeah.
Because there's capacity that you have, there's room that I'm caring for you as well.
Yep.
But it is that courage to dive deep into the emotion, to just see what happens, like be curious, like experiment a little bit with it.
Yes. Move towards, like we were talking about earlier.
Towards. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, so then what I find is it can also illuminate what you might be ready to let go of. So it can create some clarity, some awareness, right, around what might be contributing to stuckness, right, and where it is that you might be ready to let go. And so by let go, it's like, that can feel very sort of like theoretical, right? Like, well, can I just decide to let something go? And truly and honestly, yes, we can. It's all inside of us. You know what I mean? And yet it can feel tricky. So in the course, I do kind of bring some kind of structure to it that will hopefully feel supportive to people as a way of really bringing in and letting go, allowing and letting go, naming, acknowledging, and letting go.
And just to be clear, this is letting go of like a feeling or a thought or something you're stuck in, not necessarily like letting go your partner.
Good clarification.
Well, he's the problem, so I'm just going to let him go.
That's not to say that for some that might not be, but that is not specifically what I'm speaking to, for sure.
Correct.
Yes.
But I think I think again, and I'm not going to do this, but sometimes I feel like I think in my attachment and in my own relationship is just that like cut the cord. I can't stand this anymore, you know?
For sure.
And again, I think that's more of my attachment style of like, I would like this to be done with.
Yeah. This feeling.
Over with.
This feeling.
Yes. This feeling. This feeling.
Like this
but
feeling
I
to be done with.
That somebody else is causing this feeling.
Sure.
And I think that's where that clarity again is like, is this here for me?
Yeah.
No. What's the word? You reframed it.
What
is here?
Yeah. What is here for me? What is showing up here for me?
what is here for me, instead of, I think this happens a lot in relationships, we bring our partners into the causation of things.
Yeah. What are they doing to me? Why are they doing this to me?
Yes. Yeah. And on some cases, that is very true.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And what I think we don't give ourselves enough room for is, again, what is here for me, or what is happening for me here.
Yeah.
That is separate of that, but is involving him, not the cost of him, or the sum of him, or what is the word? I can't remember.
No, I think that makes sense. Not the result of his. It's not of his cause per se.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, it's triggering something in us. And so what is it that we can glean from that? What is it that we can open to help us discover what that might be, and come to that interaction from that place, rather than from the place of something is being done to me outside of my control. Right?
Yeah. And even just switching that, like, if I am in control of this, what would that be like for me?
Yeah.
You know, and not in a blaming way, but in an empowering way of, because I think there's a lot of disempowerment in relationships where, well, my partner isn't doing this and I'm doing that, or, you know, or you're waiting on someone to do X, Y, and Z. And yes, there needs to be like a turning towards.
Yes.
But I think we're very quick to kind of go there first and not ask ourselves that question of like, well, what is here for me? I'm sorry, just keep coming back to it because I got to sit with it.
Yep. Trust me. I hear you.
I got to sit with it. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I believe that everything aligns, like the universe gives you what you need. And I think it's just interesting we're having this conversation today and where I'm at today.
I mean, I feel the same way.
Sweet.
And I, you know, even with our sort of rescheduled and missed, there was like this alignment today. I was like, this is the right day to be doing this. It feels so right and so true.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that.
I love it. Yeah. Okay, so when I get to sit with myself and figure out what I want to let go, how can we, or me, communicate that the best? Because I think, and maybe there's some throat chakra stuff, but I am almost like frozen, and I'm such a hothead. Like I will tell you anything. So I think there's a lot of vulnerability here that, like, even just saying that word makes me want to cry and choke up. So I think there's that. You guys should watch this on YouTube because I'm crying now. So. But I think that is very true. I think there's a lot of vulnerability in letting someone into that.
Yeah.
And again, this just might be my own like attachment in that way, but how can we communicate that effectively where it feels good, you know? And I mean, being non-attached to his response in it, you know, because I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Absolutely. I think that's part of the discovery of this. That's part of the wonder of this, and that we each have to find that within ourselves. And I think it depends on the situation. It depends on the circumstances. There are, for instance, situations with clients where I don't even feel like anything specifically needed to be communicated to the other person. That just with this inner work, that myself and clients I've worked with have been able to show up in a different way that created more openness and connection in the relationship just by going through this process, just by being with. And so then you find your authentic way to then engage and interact and show up in a more vulnerable way, or in a more open way, or in a more heart-led way. And it's different for each person.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, Fanshen, thank you for the free therapy because what I got from that
Do tell.
is that yes, is that all right, everyone? We're just together. I think it's that, like, again, when I talked about in the beginning of the episode, this like jump rope moment of like, do I go in or do I stay out? And I think I haven't spent enough time with I'm going to be so teary, but I haven't spent enough time with myself yet. Like, I feel very, like, not, I guess, lost, but I think it's also hard to create time as a mom. Which again, we're the creative of our reality. We can find these little times, but I think there is something about, and I don't know if any other moms are feeling this way, but like to actually be truly alone with myself, like just with no distractions and just like sitting and writing and like connecting. And it sounds maybe really cheesy, but I need that. And I desperately need that now. And the way I approach my partner now is so sweet. He's like, hears this and edits it, but I don't know if he really listens to it because he listens to it very fast.
There's a lot of content for him to listen to. So.
Exactly. There you go. Just listen to this episode.
Honey,
so you know how I feel.
Listen.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But I'm carrying resentment around. I'm carrying anger around. And that is controlling all of my interactions. I'm like, ugh,
of course.
You again.
Of course.
You're helping me make dinner. Ugh. Like, yes, he's helping you make dinner. Like, is this a form of connection or not? You know, I'm just, the lens for me right now is very, like, hardened, and I'm just not getting what I need. And, you know, all of these things. Yeah. But I don't know what I need. Like, I'm just, like, I need time.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You are not alone. I hear
some therapy.
I hear this from, you're not alone. I mean, I hear this from so many parents that I work with. And yes, it is really hard. And some of it has to do with the pressure, those external pressures that we talked about earlier, right? And the demands that are on us as modern day parents, and all that we need to hold or feel like we need to hold. And some of it is really stepping back and looking at, like, what is the most important thing? What are our values? How do we want to structure our days so that we can all be whole as a family, so that we can all be the family that we actually really want to be? And some of that, yes, as a mom, it is taking a step back. And it is, I mean, I think also this, like, in this day of self-care, you know, it sort of gets trivialized a little bit, and it's sort of like, oh, like mom, like self-care kind of thing. But for me, it's like, it's deep, and it really needs to be honored and valued. And it isn't just like this trivial thing, like, oh, I need to go, like, have lunch with the girls or whatever. No, it's more like, really, like, where can there be space to disconnect from it all and reconnect to ourselves in a way that really feels meaningful? And it's not just the family that makes it hard to do that, right? Like, distraction, you know, internet distractions, and like wanting to keep up on everything, like all the blogs and all the things and all the right? It's like, there are a lot of layers to it. And I think it's just always this reminder of, like, coming back to our values and coming back to ourselves and coming back to this place of empowerment of, like, I can actually decide how we live our life as a family, how we conduct our life as a family. I get to decide that.
Yeah.
That's actually up to
I
me.
love that.
Right?
Yes. Yes, I think most millennial moms, including myself, are addicted to this phone. If I'm like stressed out with my kids, I'm just going to go on Instagram or TikTok real quick. And like, I'm not regulating. I'm not getting in touch with myself. I'm disconnecting even more. And I think that's where the problem is for most millennial moms, is we're so overwhelmed. And so we're always trying to disconnect. But
it doesn't recharge.
But the answer is actually true reconnection with ourselves.
Yes.
which is that intentional time inward.
Yeah.
And so I think like for everyone that is listening today, I would like to challenge you to spend 5 to 10 minutes outside in the grass, if you can be, whatever, the sun, hopefully it's sunny where you are, and just like leave your phone inside and sit there or journal or do nothing or think or feel the sun, like, choose your own adventure.
Yes.
But I think this is like this collective piece that we all have to support each other in really disconnecting in order to reconnect with ourselves. And maybe we could do like World Reconnect Day.
I love it. I can see your posts on Instagram already.
World Reconnect Day. Yes. I think that would be so special if we can try that, because we all need it.
Well, so you just highlighted my third step, which is let in. And that piece is essential when it connects back to my original, my mental health myth, which is that therapy doesn't have to be absolutely painful, and neither does life. I feel like in a lot of ways we've let go of like joy and the simple things, right? And so let in is the third sort of step in my course, which is just allowing ourselves to notice, feel, experience, and bring towards us things that feel good and that are good, right, for us. And it is intentional. It isn't just so sure. Yeah, sometimes scrolling on TikTok and scrolling on Instagram does feel like the right thing, and it can be if it's intentional and thoughtful. If it is just an impulse to feel like I have to, I can't be parenting right now, I need to, right? It's not going to give that same effect or that same feeling. And so really letting in what is good and feels good. And that also can related to the relationship, right? I think it's really easy when parenting one kids to feel like everything's just a grind. Everything's about the day-to-day, the who's doing who's doing what, who's going where, right? And it's easy to forget the elements of a relationship or of this other person that you're with that you really love and appreciate. So it's also just the simple act of gratitude, which, gets a lot of play and for good reason. But I take it deeper, which is that I really ask people to feel the gratitude in their body, not just in their mind. So I do this with a lot of clients. I actually call it marinating in goodness.
Ooh.
Yeah. So just this concept, this idea of like feeling in all the parts of your body, the goodness that you described, like taking that moment, taking that 5 minutes to be in the sun. It's actually something I often will recommend to clients as our session ends, if they can just take 5 minutes after the session and just allow themselves to feel into what felt important, what felt good about the session, and preferably do it sitting with the sun beating down on you and with your eyes closed. So you can feel it with all your senses. And that piece can be really integrating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's
I love that
part is really just letting in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fanshen, thank you for my own therapy hour broadcasted for everyone to hear.
My pleasure, my honor. It's rewarding for me as well. Beautiful.
Thank you
exchange.
So much. Yeah.
You deepened
thank you so
what
much.
I had to share.
Oh,
seriously.
I got some real life deepening stuff happening. Welcome in. So good. Fanshen, where can people find you if they want to work with you? Tell us all the deets.
Absolutely. Yeah. All my information is on my website. It's my full name.com. So FanshenThompson.com. I have a free workshop that I do actually once a month. Anybody can sign up for it. There's a link on my site. I support people to learn mindfulness and somatic techniques to help with loneliness and disconnection in relationships. I also have a therapy group series. I don't have an active one running right now, but I hope to get one up and running relatively soon. And I offer individual and couples therapy. So sky's the limit what I will be doing next. I hope to do retreats and more courses and lots of different things in the future as I continue to kind of develop them.
Yes, here for the expansion.
Whoop,
Yes,
whoop.
I love it. Yeah. All right, Fanshen, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll put all of your info on the show notes as well.
Wonderful.
And
thank you so much.
See you soon.
Definitely.
Yeah, thanks.
Sounds good.
Wow. I don't know about you, but that was a lot for me. But again, I hope in our conversation and the vulnerability that we both shared that you can understand that, number one, you're not alone if you're feeling the same way. And number two, that there is a way to get through it all. If you need more information or more resources, you can always check out Fanshen's course. It's 30 minutes. It's Feeling Stuck in Our Relationships on the How We Get Thru app. And you can grab a free 7-day trial today to unlock that course and so many others. You guys, thank you so much again for being a part of this community, allowing me to be vulnerable and share. If you loved what you heard, we would love for you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And again, just thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time.